From 2 Keto LLC, it's Keto Woman Podcast with Daisy Brackenhall.
Hello Keto Lovelies, I'm Daisy Brackenhall and I've spent most of my life struggling with my weight and confidence, and I've always had a difficult relationship with food. Even when I finally got to my target weight after weight loss surgery and eating low carb, I couldn't maintain it and I was miserable. Keto has given me the freedom to fall in love with food again, without the constant gain, loss, guilt, virtue cycle of before. Health and happiness is where it's at now, running on fat. Welcome to the Keto Woman Podcast. Each week I'll be chatting to inspirational women, maybe the odd man, to discover the secrets to their success so that I can share them with you. So what is keto? Keto is a way of eating that enables you to switch your body's main fuel source from sugar to fat. Who doesn't want to be a fat burner, right? But how do we achieve this? A great place to start is by keeping carbs to 20 grams or less per day, so things like leafy greens and above-ground vegetables, plus some nuts and seeds, and the incidental carbs you find in things like dairy. Moderate protein, scaled to your lean body mass, and then fat to satiety. Once you're in the swing of things, you can tweak it to suit you. Make your own personalised keto. I'll be asking my guests each week what their keto looks like to show you just how flexible and fabulous this way of eating can be. I'm not a doctor and most of my guests won't be either, so we can't give you medical advice. It's always best to work with your own doctor because they know you and your medical history and so have access to the bigger picture. This week's extraordinary women are Danielle Coonerty and Erika Burt. Danielle grew up in a family of 6 with a tight budget and bread as part of every meal. She played soccer up to the age of 30, but started to find playing much more difficult after puberty and gaining weight. She has now found a new venture in CrossFit and loves the community aspect of it. Erika had a focus on her weight and diet from an early age. This had an ongoing effect on her health, confidence and self-worth. Erika loves to cook and travel. She started her travel adventures from the age of 19 and is always planning the next big trip. Danielle and Erika live in Melbourne, Australia with their 2 rescue cats. They have been together for 11 years and recently got married. They have both struggled with losing weight in the past and tried many different options. Keto is what has worked for them and they have lost over 90 kilograms between them. They are currently working together on their blog Have Butter, We'll Travel, sharing their favourite keto meals and travel adventures. Welcome, Danielle and Erika, to the Keto Women Podcast. It's lovely to have you here today. How are you both?
Hi, Daisy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Danielle?
Really good.
And Erika?
Hi.
Hiya. How are you today?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very good, thank you. We're on pretty well opposite sides of the globe, aren't we? You're both in Australia, is that right?
Well, it is. Night and day, literally.
Yeah, literally. Yeah, I can see outside. You've got the morning light and it's super dark and very wet and windy. Here it's vile. Okay, so Danielle, why don't you tell the listeners a bit about yourself?
Okay, so I grew up in a reasonably small town in Australia. Spent most of my childhood playing sport. That was my focus. Played a lot of soccer. And yeah, grew up with my brothers and sisters and yeah, that's about it. Moved to Sydney when I was in my early 20s. Yeah.
I know you mentioned to me before that you your family was on quite a tight budget, a food budget with growing up. So, yeah, I think Erika joked about something about carbs on carbs you used to eat.
So we there was 4 kids, limited budget within the family. So bread was with every meal. White bread, loaf put on the table for every meal. If we had, meat and 3 veg, the mash would go on the bread. That's where the carb on carbs come from.
Right.
Even I would put like pasta on bread. It's crazy. To think about it now, it's, mental. that I was putting pasta, potatoes on bread.
Yeah, so you literally bulked your diet up with carbs because it's cheap, basically.
Yeah, Mum just was the way that we bulked it out, because there was 2 girls and 2 boys, and me and the boys ate like crazy. So we would need that loaf of bread to get through the meal.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
And we'd be stealing food off each other's plates and...
Really?
Yeah.
And you were playing lots of sports, so I should imagine you got hungry doing that.
Yeah, so I ate a lot as well. And before I hit puberty, I could get away with that. I could eat as much as I wanted and never put on any weight. But once puberty came, it was like, wow, the weight started piling on. Right,
regardless of playing sport, you still were gaining weight, yeah.
Regardless of the playing sport. I even had to move from the field to goalkeeper because I put on, I couldn't run as well as I could before. So, yeah.
Right, so you'd done nothing different with your diet. It was just, a hormonal shift.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. What weight did you get up to eventually before you looked at trying to do something about it?
Yeah, I was probably about 110. The first time I started to move into trying to change my diet and focus on it, and that was probably like late teens, early 20s.
And so the reasons, presumably, I mean, obviously it was impacting your ability to do things like sport and move around. Was that your main focus, your main reason for losing weight?
At that point, yes.
Right, yes. So what kind of things did you try at that point?
I tried Weight Watchers, and I think I might have even tried Light and Easy at that point. And you would lose a bit and then it would go back on. I mean, we've all got that story where, you lose 10 kilos and then you put on 12.
Exactly. That's the problem, isn't it? Every time you go back to any kind of normal eating, you put back on the weight you've lost plus a little bit more. You know, just for luck.
Yeah, exactly.
It's horrible the way it works, isn't it? It's really unfair. Yes, okay. So, Erika, tell me a bit about your story.
Well, my childhood was probably pretty different to Dan's. I've got quite a small family. And I guess I feel like my whole childhood and life has been somewhat based around my weight struggles. My mum had her own weight issues. And I guess when I was younger, that was projected onto me, unwittingly to her. I mean, she had the best of intentions. I don't blame her at all. She wanted what was best for me, and she thought that was sort of restricting my food from quite a young age. So, I can't really think of a time when I haven't had that kind of, I'm eating something, is this good or bad thought in my head. And as a result, I've been overweight my whole life. It's been a constant struggle for me, and I've been on every diet under the sun, and I guess the same situation as Dan. At the start you would lose some weight, it's working, and then nothing was ever sustainable for me, which I think partially was emotional and mental, because I really struggled with any sort of restriction, because I think I'd been restricted from such a young age, so I wanted to always rebel against that. So that's kind of a big challenge for me.
Exactly. It often has the opposite effect, doesn't it? When there's something you can't have, that's exactly what you want, and quite often tend to go and have and overeat when people aren't looking. Exactly. Who are doing the restricting. That's certainly what I've done in my childhood.
Yeah, and it becomes an all or nothing. Like, it definitely became, I was either on a diet or I was the opposite end of the spectrum, completely not on a diet and just feeling, crap about myself. And, so that's my weight loss struggles. And I feel like it's almost just, taken over part of my whole existence, because my whole self-worth was really based on the scales.
Yeah, so I can I can hear from what you're saying that it obviously impacted your mood a great deal. But I believe you had other problems with blood pressure and joint pain. Is that right?
Yeah. So I guess just before we probably started into keto, my health concerns were kind of more pressing than my weight, or not my weight, but the scales or what I looked like, or, my other reasons for wanting to lose weight. My blood pressure, I was on 3 different types of medication, and it was still, difficult to control it properly. And right before we started, I think what was like the kind of final nail in the coffin of I have to actually do something about this. Well, there was 2 things. One, we went on a big trip to Europe, and I was just in so much joint pain in my knees and ankles, particularly just like trying to move around at all, which I thought was, it's just because I'm carrying all this weight. But once I started keto, how it improves so quickly, I realised now it was actually inflammation more so than the stress of the weight. And also I went to the doctor just to have a normal blood thing, and my blood sugars was, I think it was just 0.1 out of the normal range. And she was like, maybe we need to do a glucose tolerance test and see, look into this further. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so paranoid about having diabetes. So I was like, I've just got to nip this in the bud. And we started keto straight away, and I've not had problems with my blood sugar since.
So why don't you tell me how you two met? I always love a good romance.
We met in 2006. I was going to a lesbian group, and I'd been going there for about 6 months. And then one day Erika turned up, and that was it. Really, it's not that much to the story, but we started hanging out, and maybe about a month in, we decided we wanted to be together, I guess. And that was 11 years ago.
And you got married recently, is that right?
We did. Took off to San Francisco. No one knew. No family was aware of it at all. And we got married in the City Hall, which was a beautiful venue to get married in. We just did it off our own back. And I'm so glad we did. Not just for, that we love each other, but...
Wow. Thanks, Dan. Thanks.
But now that the same-sex marriage thing's become legal here, it's so nice that we don't have everyone saying, so when are you going to get married? When are you going to get married? It's done.
Coincidence, by the way. That's not why we got married, to avoid those questions. I hope.
So presumably that was one of the reasons for choosing San Francisco, was it? Because you could get married there.
Yes, and we love that city. We've been there 3 times already. So, yeah, we love that city. And we were going there. We'd organised the holiday, and then one day Erika's like, do you want to get married while we're in San Francisco? I was like, yeah, okay, why not?
Very run-of-the-mill itinerary planning. But yeah, also Erika is a massive introvert and would hate, I didn't want to get married because I didn't want a wedding, because the thought of standing up in front of everyone, is mortifying to me. So it was like, well, that's not really a reason not to get married to somebody I love. So, eloping was the perfect option in that respect.
And it's super romantic and exciting as well. So it all adds to a good story. Wonderful. And yes, I remember you putting the pictures up, and they're lovely. So tell me a bit about your journey together with keto, because it sounds like your keto journey is very much started together. So tell me how that evolved.
Yeah, definitely. I think poor Dan, the weight was certainly more of a focus for me than it ever was for Dan. As much as she was overweight and wanted to lose weight, it wasn't kind of her main, focus of being like it has been for me, I guess. And so every Monday there was a new harebrained scheme about, what we were trying to how we were going to lose weight this week. And we've certainly together tried a lot of different things. And I guess, yeah, so over the years, you know, all the traditional ones we started with, like Weight Watchers and, you know, Light and Easy and those kind of things. And then as we were getting closer to finding keto, we kind of tried paleo and LCHF. But I mean, I can't say why those things didn't stick. And then when we tried keto specifically, it did. I think it was more factors than it just being keto. As much as we did find it incredibly sustainable and, you know, like the way that we felt was just a massive, improvement. So that was obviously a great thing. But I think there were other factors as far, you know, like my health conditions, I just had a different determination. And I was also, seeing a psychologist in relation to my kind of emotional struggles with it. So I think it kind of all came together when we started with keto, and that sort of helped with us being successful this time.
You forgot my favourite one, OptiFast.
Oh, okay.
That was terrible.
Tell me about that. What's OptiFast?
Replacement shakes.
Oh, like the sort of slim fast type.
People do it before they have to have weight loss surgery quite often to like reduce your liver and whatnot.
Right.
But we lost like a fair amount of weight, but it's just like, well, what do? You can't be on OptiFast forever. You'll kill somebody.
Exactly. Yeah, you tend to lose weight quite quickly to start with, but you know, the weight loss tails off anyway. And then, like you say, you're stuck. So do I keep on with these shakes to maintain what I've lost and just be completely miserable, or what? Start regaining it all? It's never going to be sustainable. Is it something like that?
Yeah.
We did it for 3 months, and I have no idea how we did it for 3 months. Oh,
I know. I don't know either. Crazy.
So that's another no-go then. But with keto, I think you mentioned you've had a couple of full starts with keto even. Is that right?
Well, yeah, we tried some of the diet doctor stuff a couple of times, and that didn't really stick either. And then this time, I don't know what it was, but it was just an alignment of everything.
And I think when we did keto, I think because we restricted the carbohydrates so much more than like a moderate LCHF, which is probably more what we were following with Diet Doctor, that we really got the kind of benefits and really quickly. So not just weight loss, but like my joint pain within a couple of weeks was like, I was just like, I just got out of bed and I didn't even have any pain. Like I didn't realize how much pain I was actually in prior to starting it because I was just so used to it. And it's like, wow, when that was like 2 weeks in, it's not because I've lost 20 kilos that I'm feeling better. It's because this food is, you know, affecting my body differently. And I think, yeah, I was just so much more emotionally stable, and like the mental clarity that you find with a keto versus perhaps a moderate LCHF, for us anyway. I think that's kind of what made the difference.
Yes, I agree. And I think that's quite a common pattern actually, isn't it? That a lot of people, myself included, start with a much more moderate, low carb, high fat approach. And it does work, and it does improve your life enormously, but it's only when you take it down, just that you just find that magic level that you just drop into the keto zone and things do start changing really quickly, don't they? And
yeah, it's amazing.
And that's what helps to make it sustainable. Apart from the fact that the things that made it difficult to carry on before, things like cravings, do seem to pretty much go away, don't they?
Yeah, for sure. And when we have, you know, perhaps been on holidays and we've eaten more carbs than we normally would, I want to get back to normal. Whereas normally, before we started keto, that would then snowball into 6 months of eating crap. Whereas now I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get home and just get back to normal and feeling great. So it's not just the weight loss that's motivating me to stay on keto, which I think is a big help.
I think that's the biggest difference, is it's not just the weight loss that's the motivation.
No, absolutely. And what have you found, Danielle? I know you've both lost weight, and Erika's spoken a bit about the other benefits that she's found with keto. But what about you? Have you found you're able to, get back to sports more and things?
I've started doing CrossFit, which is like crazy because I never thought I would do something like that. But
that's pretty energetic stuff, isn't it? I've watched a couple of videos and it's a bit scary.
Looks like a lot of hard work.
It is, but I don't know what it is about it. I think for me, part of it is the community.
It's the community.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you do like
because
that.
the place that I've found, they're not all kind of heroes walking around pumping their muscles out. They're just regular people like me, and we meet up there at 6 o'clock in the morning. We don't have to be best friends, but we all just kind of have the common goal of doing that hour together. And yeah, I think it is the community that makes that difference, in that I like to go because I like the working out, but I like the community aspect as well.
I have read that it's a really supportive community effort when you're there.
Yeah, it is.
Good. So you've obviously found it much easier to be active again.
I wouldn't have walked into that gym at 114 kilos. So I wouldn't have been confident to go and do CrossFit at the weight that I was. So yes, I've got more energy, but I think the weight loss also gave me the confidence to feel like I could do it. Whereas I wouldn't have thought I could do it at that starting weight kind of thing.
Yeah, let alone it just physically being more difficult when you're carrying more weight. It's just harder, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And
you both love travelling. I assume it's also a lot easier to travel when you're a bit lighter, isn't it?
Oh, Erika can take that one.
I mean, honestly, like I can't go on a plane now without crying, because I used to need a seatbelt extender. I couldn't use the tray table. It was like I would have so much anxiety leading up to go. As much as I love traveling and we did it all the time, 24 hours before the flight, I start, thinking about, what's going to happen? What if I'm touching someone next to me and they get upset? And it's just and it's so uncomfortable physically. You're it's uncomfortable for everybody, but, when you're overweight, it's just horrible. And now I go on the plane and I don't need it, I can just walk in, no extender, use the tray table, and I have, inches spare on my seat, but I literally take a photo and get emotional every time. Dan's like, just get over that. But it's just one small aspect of, so many things that change when you're just more of considered, I guess, a normal weight and not somebody who's so, different to everybody else that you get stared at and you're constantly worried about sitting on chairs and, are you going to fit into things on, I guess any tourist places that you go. So, it's made a massive difference.
You're constantly eyeing up those chairs, aren't you? Seeing if, are they actually going to take my weight? Because I have broken chairs in the past and that one looks a bit fragile. So I've definitely avoided sitting on chairs before.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. We're not eating there. Definitely. Or you're perched on the edge of it, kind of, muscles tightened just in case.
Ready to stand up quickly if it starts going. Yeah, no, I've been there, absolutely.
And I never understood that. Like, Erika will be like, we cannot eat at that place because I can't sit. I would not want to sit on those chairs. And I'd be like, what? Like, I would not get it.
Or a booth. Oh my gosh. No, we don't want the booth.
It's a genuine concern. Yeah, I've had that with certain, McDonald's branches and things where you can sort of wedge yourself in when they're fixed and you can't move them back, and it's just uncomfortable, isn't it? And that plane seatbelt thing, I know that completely. I never had to go on a long haul flight when I was seriously overweight, but I did do a couple of short trips on, things like Ryanair. And I was so embarrassed to ask for one of those seat extenders. I wouldn't do it. So I would make it look like the seatbelt was done up and sort of strategically place my cardigan or something so that they didn't ask me and they didn't insist.
You rebel, you.
That's me. But I remember it completely. It was so stressful and so upsetting having to travel.
And if you haven't been there, I guess it's hard to understand because it probably seems insignificant. But just having to ask for it just feels so humiliating to start with. Well, that's what I felt like.
Well, it actually got to a point where I was asking for it. Because I had no emotional attachment to it. I'd be just like, just get it. Give me the seatbelt extender. It doesn't matter. Yeah, but to me it was like, oh, it's my own, it's my own fault because I'm so shit that I need this seatbelt extender and they're going to think, oh, you stupid fat person, get out there and eat right and exercise. And it's like, I'm trying, man.
Of course, you start taking on all these imaginary opinions from everyone else, don't you? Yeah.
Yes, which are your own.
Of course. No, I totally share in that, and I still do that. I mean, I've been able to do the seatbelt up for 2 or 3 years now at least, but I still get that thrill when you sit down, you do the belt up, and then you have to tighten it. It's a great feeling. I'm the same. I still get that. It's a fantastic feeling. It's one of the big ones, I think, that everyone who's been there.
Yeah, and when we went to San Francisco, like we're sitting in our seats in economy, and I said to Dan, there's 90 kilos less of us here. That's one pretty overweight, like that's one overweight person.
Wow.
That's not sitting in these two seats anymore. Like, it's crazy. How did we do it before? I don't know.
Well, it's an achievement and a fantastic thing to notice when you're going away for something so special as well. And travel's a big part of your life, isn't it? Have you always been great travellers, or is that something that you've only started to do since you've been together?
Well, I didn't travel much at all before I met Erika. I wasn't probably interested in it. I'd done one trip to Hawaii. That was the only overseas trip I'd done. But Erika loved travel. I'll let her talk about it. But she introduced it to me, and we haven't looked back since, really. I can't get enough annual leave to cover what we want to do.
Yes, the constant annual leave struggle.
How do you decide where you're going to go? Do you both want to go to the same places, or is there a bit of it's my turn to choose this time? How do you work that out?
Usually Erika comes with an idea and I agree.
I knew you were going to say that.
So you come up with a good plan, do you, Erika? And it's such a good plan that Danielle just agrees.
She's pretty easygoing, so I'm very lucky. I get to pick and choose. So I mean, I don't know why I love traveling. I've always loved traveling, and since I was I first went overseas by myself to the UK for 3 years when I was 20, and I haven't looked back. I've always just have to have my next trip planned. I did a really big trip. Actually, it was a great weight loss thing. I didn't realize at the time, but I did a massive camping trip overland from Istanbul in Turkey to Cape Town, which was 7 months. And I lost so much weight, but I didn't even realize at the time because I was camping the whole time. There was no scales there. Barely had access to even mirrors. This was a while ago. And I wasn't, I actually got my first email account on that trip. So we weren't in contact with people. And when I got home, my mum was like, oh my gosh, who are you? But, once I wasn't camping and being so active and, eating, I guess it was probably more natural foods that I was eating in Africa, came back to reality and stacked it all back on. But back to traveling, sorry. I just love it. And it's something that we really enjoy doing together.
That sounds like a fantastic adventure. And you were in the UK for 3 years. You were working there, presumably, or studying, or?
Yeah. Oh, no, I was on a working holiday. So I was there for 2 years, and then I did the travelling for 1 year at the end.
Right.
But yeah, I worked in Scotland, in a hotel.
Fabulous. Great. So where's your next trip? What's the next trip you've got planned?
We're going on a cruise at Christmas with a big family group. So we'll be working out how to do low carb on a cruise. I think it'll be pretty easy to do.
We've done a lot of cruising.
The cruise goes out of Sydney up to Fiji, New Caledonia. It's quite a common one to do out of Australia, and it's over New Year's Eve.
Oh, right. So big parties on the cruise ship then, I imagine.
Yeah, I work for a cruise company, so we go on a lot of cruises.
I see. You get an employee discount.
Mm-hmm.
That sounds like fun. How do you find travelling with keto? I mean, you must have. So when did you say you started keto? A year or two ago? Is that right?
July 2016. So about 18 months.
Right. So how have you found being able to sustain keto while you're travelling?
Well, one good thing that I think's helped with travelling that's probably unconventional and frowned upon by other people in keto, but it was actually suggested by my psychologist when we first started, because I was so worried about going off the rails, was that we actually go off the rails, like go have a set
meal.
I used to have a set period of time. So between 12 and 2 on Saturday, like it was only once a fortnight or once a month, I would have a time when I would have to eat something that wasn't on plan. Not like, I don't know, Krispy Kremes and thick shakes or anything, but we would go out for a nice meal and perhaps there'd be some potato or, things that you didn't know what were in them or whatever. And that's amazingly helped with being able to know that I can trust myself to eat something that's perhaps not considered keto friendly, and then just go back to normal life afterwards with not, beating myself up about it, but also not letting that snowball into, okay, well, I'm off plan now, so then it's a free for all. So I think doing that has really helped with the traveling, because also an important thing I love, important factor when we're traveling is trying local delicacies. And, we love doing like walking food tours and that type of thing. So I didn't want to then feel like, I was restricted on holidays and I can't do those things that I love. So I know now I can trust myself to, if there's something there that I think's worth trying and I want to try it and enjoy it, that's okay. And then I'll have a bunless burger for dinner and life goes on. So I think that has really helped from my perspective. I don't know what your input is, Dan.
Well, we do choose at times when we're traveling, to have that buttery croissant in France, but then the next meal will be keto. And then breakfast is easy to make keto. So breakfast would be just no toast. We'd just have the eggs and whatever. So there might be times when we're traveling that we are eating more carbs than what we would at home, but we don't go 2 weeks full on crazy carb-filled fest kind of thing.
I think that's a very important distinction to make, and I think it's something that is crucial to you to combine your two great passions and things that you enjoy, the food and the keto and the travel. And it's true that unless you have a reason that even the smallest amount of food off plan is going to really severely impact your health, which it does for some people.
It does, yes.
And they can't stray at all without feeling, really bad physically, mentally, both.
Mm-hmm. If
you can do that, it does seem a great shame to hamper your traveling experience without tasting the local delicacy or something like that. And I think it's true that wherever you go, you can make sensible keto choices for the most part. There are usually options that you're going to enjoy that are keto, but that you can have something that's really part of this traveling experience. And like you say, know that it's not going to send you completely off the rails, that you can just make it a small part of the whole experience and enjoy it and move on. Because it would be a shame, wouldn't it, to miss out on something if you're in a particular part of the world for possibly one time only to not have the local delicacy.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that would also feed into my issues with restriction, because then I would feel like I can't do that and I want to rebel against it, and it ends up in a bad place. So I have sort of not like set rules, but I have to, I like to think to myself, is this thing worth it? Like, I'm not having McDonald's ice cream sundae. I mean, I don't know. People might really like those. They're not my favorite thing. Like, I'm going to have, a gelato, from a beautiful shop that's, made with pistachios or whatever. Like, yeah, so I kind of, and yeah, I don't know. You know what I mean?
I do absolutely understand it. I understand that place, and it happens more, I think, with diets, when you are being super restrictive and you are not allowing yourself to have any of the things that you think you so desperately want. Whereas on keto, you're eating delicious food all the time. So just like you were saying earlier, you have something that's a bit off plan and you might not feel great, but you know that the next day you're going straight back to it. But you wanted to have that experience. You wanted to have the gelato while you're walking along the streets of Florence or something. It's kind of got to be done if your system can tolerate it. And like you were saying with the psychological issues around restriction, if you're not careful, if you don't treat that side of you kindly, you can fall off a cliff, can't you? And end up just eating all the things and everything going completely wrong.
For sure.
And I imagine it must be a lot easier with the two of you doing it together. You have that real support for each other and the understanding with each other. That must make a real difference.
Yes, it's so easy. I really feel for people who have
a family,
their families eating regular foods. Because even if we have guests staying and they're cooking toast and things, I'm like, I'd love a piece of Vegemite on toast. It's a big Australian, staple. But yeah, it's killer. And I just think, oh gosh, imagine if I was a mum having to cook, a regular meal for my family and then a separate meal for me. Like, we're so fortunate. I can go to the pantry, open it up, and, anything I want, I can eat anything in there within reason. I don't have to have a separate shelf for me and then, all those things that I can't eat and that sort of thing. So I think, we're super fortunate that we're both following it.
It takes away the decision, because we just don't have that food in the house because neither of us eat it. And you don't have to make that decision of, I don't eat that.
It makes it so much easier, doesn't it? With me, if there's something in the house that I'm not supposed to eat, it just calls to me constantly, eat me, eat me, eat me, eat me. And so you're constantly having to battle yourself, aren't you? So it is so much easier when it's not in the house. I really have such admiration for people who are, say, the only person in the family eating keto. It must be so hard.
How they do it. I don't know how they do it. Especially if they're the main person that does the cooking and everything in that family. I'd just make everyone eat keto. No choice.
I would too.
I know it doesn't work that way with kids though, so.
And so tell me a bit about your latest joint venture, your blog, which has a fantastic name, and you can tell what it's about in the title. Have Butter, Will Travel. It's it's a combination of keto and traveling. Tell me more about it.
It just kind of was like, we do feel like we have an experience that we could share with other people. And combining the two, I think, is a niche that hasn't really been done yet. There might be a couple of people out there doing something like it, but we'd really love to be able to show that you can still do the thing that you love, and for us that's travel, incorporating the keto lifestyle, I guess.
Yeah, and we're not we love reading about the science and researching it, but we're certainly no experts. So that's not something that we can really probably share with people, but what we can share is like just our practical experience in how we do this every day, how we make, food that's yummy and keto friendly. And I guess specifically, as a resource for Australian people who are interested in keto, because a lot of the recipes and things you find are more US based, and we don't necessarily have all those ingredients or even, it's a different palate almost. So, so we hope that we can be helpful to Aussies that are interested in keto and show them we're just regular people who do this. We're not, and it's easy. Anyone can do it and perhaps help in that way.
The funny thing, I was just thinking about it actually, was we've got a group of friends that we play trivia with, and they've known what we've been doing for 18 months, and none of them have ever been interested in it. And we've started like sharing the blog and all of that, and they all want to start doing it. And it's kind of like, where did this come from? None of you have been interested in this for 18 months, and you kind of have something that you can look at, and now you want to know all about it.
It's the food porn. That's what it is. It's those glorious pictures. How can anyone resist? It's, as soon as you start seeing pictures like that, it's always what fires people up, isn't it? And they see it and they just start salivating.
And I think the funny thing is that we see them every week. So I think they're just used to seeing it. We've changed over time, and obviously they've commented on that. But when they looked at the before and after photos, they're like, I don't remember you being like that. Like, that's not, I just think of you like you are now. So they could really see on the blog the big change that we'd made, because it had kind of been gradual to them. So yeah, they're all keen for the new year. So we'll see.
Oh, good. So it's going to start rubbing off on other people too, and presumably every new place you travel to, you'll start being able to build up a resource and a list of places that you find that are really keto friendly.
Yes, that's the plan.
Good plan. Okay, so tell me a bit about what your day-to-day keto looks like.
Well, for me, generally I will do intermittent fasting 16-8. So my usual eating window is between 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. because I'm an early morning person, so I like to eat early in the evening. So normally about 10 I'll have just a coffee with some cream in it to kind of break my fast, and then within that period I might have one or two meals depending on how I'm feeling. And try and finish eating by 6 o'clock.
And you tried some other things before that, did you say? We were talking earlier. You started keto and you dropped a fair amount of weight, and then things sort of leveled out a bit, and you experimented with a few different things. What went on there?
Yeah, so, in the first 9 months, I lost 40 kilos pretty easily, just counting carbs, like I was doing total 20 carbs a day. And some intermittent fasting as well. And then my weight loss slowed down, and my obsession with the scales really came to the fore, because that was my whole self-worth was based on that number, which was great when I was losing because I was on top of the world. And then when it slowed down, I really struggled, and poor Dan has had some emotional weigh-ins that she's had to deal with, but I think that's improving. I hope she'll mention that. But so then I decided obviously I need to keto harder. So then I restricted more. So I was restricting my calories, and then I was trying to do extended fast 3 days, and that just really negatively impacted my emotional state more so than helping with my weight loss efforts, because it was back to that restriction mode where I wanted to rebel. And then if I'm on a fast, all I want to do is eat. So I had to come to terms myself with the scale not being my number one focus, and my health and happiness being my number one focus. And if I'm not at my goal weight, that doesn't mean that I'm not worthy. I'm still, I need to be happy and healthy and make this sustainable. So I think ketoing harder was not sustainable for me, and I didn't necessarily see the results on the scale either. So, I think this is very sustainable for me. I'm happy. I'm feeling good. So that's what's important to me at the moment.
So that goal of health and happiness, that's good. You're achieving that. Fantastic. And what about you, Danielle? Similar or slightly different?
Mostly similar. I still try and stick to the intermittent fasting as well. But sometimes after the gym in the morning, I feel like I need to eat something. And I might cut up some cheese or actually have breakfast after the gym. That wouldn't be every day after the gym, but it really just depends on how I'm feeling. But I do try to see if I can go till 10, and then I have a snack at work. But I probably have more carbs, especially on the gym days, than what Erika would be eating. So I have some more berries. I will have some coconut yogurt. But our meals together are the same.
And have you found that your keto has evolved, or has it stayed pretty much the same from the start?
Oh, it's definitely evolved now that I'm at my kind of the weight that I'm going to stay at. I don't need to lose any more now. I struggle with feeling like I can get away with something. I feel like, oh, well, I could eat that if I wanted to, and I could probably get away with it. But I'm getting better and better with that. I just try and stick with the keto as much as I can. Erika's the rebel. I'm much more of an obliger. If I'm doing this diet, I'm doing this diet. And I don't like I struggle with eating something that's not keto and moving back because I feel like I'm not doing it right kind of thing. But having Erika do it the way that she's been doing it has helped me relax around it more as well. So it's evolved over that time, I guess.
That's really interesting. And the fact that the two personalities, how they work together, where you have your differences, but actually
it's the same challenge. Yeah.
Yeah. And it helps your combined effort. They really play off against each other very well by the sounds of it.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
And so it's great that I've got two of you today because we get two lots of top tips. So who's going to go first?
Erika can.
Go on then, Erika. What's your top tip?
Okay. I guess because of my, lifelong weight loss struggles, and it's not a specifically keto tip, but I'd struggled my whole life with my weight, and I'd almost resigned to the fact that this was just going to be it. This was my lot, and I just had to get on with it. But I never fully gave up. So I would just say to anybody, never give up. We tried so many things, and I guess in all of those things we did learn something that eventually helped with keto. Like when we were doing paleo and LCHF, I guess we learned, cooking techniques and different, introducing different types of foods that then when we did take on keto, we already had that knowledge. So, there's an ad in Australia around giving up smoking, and it says every time you quit, you're closer to quitting for good. So I guess that to me rings true with, your weight loss struggles, everything you try, you're perhaps learning something new about yourself that will help you, perhaps get there and beat the demons inside.
Great. I love that. That's a really good tip. Danielle, what about you?
Mine is around finding a community that can help you. I think that that's been a big difference for us, or for me personally this time, is having a community. A lot of that has been around Facebook and the Two Keto Dudes, feeling like there are people doing the same thing as you that you can kind of talk to if you need to. And sometimes you don't even need to talk to them. You can just watch what's happening within the group, and it makes you feel like you're a part of it. And the Kick-Ass Bitches has taken over from the Keto Dudes for me. That's where I, interact the most now. I don't use the forums as much, but I find the Kick-Ass Bitches is great.
Yeah, it's a great place, isn't it? And it's all about finding your tribe, isn't it? Finding people who are like you that you can connect with. And just like you were saying with your CrossFit, it's finding a supportive community that can help you out.
Yeah. And I didn't realise how important that was until I started thinking about it for this, talking to you, because I really believe that has been one of the differences this time, is having that support. And yeah.
Particularly, I guess, with keto, kind of, I guess, for our family and friends, it seems so foreign, and eating all that fat can't be good for you is just, you know, everybody's impression. So you can feel isolated in that respect. So having, you know, the Facebook groups or the forums to be like, oh, there's other people doing this and succeeding, and they're not, you know, they're healthy as well. So it's not just me, like this does actually work, and I'm not a weirdo. And
exactly. And it's a vast, huge community.
Yeah.
You haven't got to be reliant on, you know, going down to your local Weight Watchers or something anymore, which has all its inherent problems. But, you know, we haven't got a local, you know, most people haven't got a local keto gathering that we can go to. But all we have to do these days is, you know, open the laptop or look on your phone, and you've got this huge community you can tap into.
And the technology has made that so much easier, right? So we can just go on Facebook and find the community that suits us. Whereas before, if you were relying on your location, you might not like those people that are in that group, and you kind of, that's your option, you know what I mean? Whereas Facebook opens it up.
Exactly. No more restrictions. Well, look at us today, talking thousands and thousands of miles away from each other, and here we are chatting away about keto.
Exactly.
It's been wonderful talking to you two ladies today. Thank you very much for joining me.
Thanks so much, Daisy.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, it's been great. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. To get the resources and links from the show, please go to ketowomanpodcast.com. Are you my next extraordinary woman? Maybe you've got an idea for a show, a topic you want to hear about. Let me know how I can tickle your earbuds by dropping me a line at daisy@ketowomanpodcast.com. If you fancy joining me on this exciting adventure and help create new shows, please go to my Patreon page at patreon.com/ketowoman, where you can make a monthly contribution, big or small. You can also simply hit the support button on the Keto Woman website. It's thanks to the two keto dudes that I'm hosting this podcast, so please consider heading to their Patreon page at patreon.2keto.com and help them bring you more podcasts like this one. Please also help other people find this podcast by reviewing the show on iTunes. This week's quote is from Susan Sontag. I haven't been everywhere, but it's on my list. Bye-bye, Keto Lovelies.